A pleasant morning to each and every one. I am Nurhana Daniel Mama, and this is my report, Lesson 5, Instructional Planning Components. To give you an overview of this lesson, instructional planning is one of the most crucial skills teachers have in their arsenal teaching journey. It helps them reflect on their teaching and make the necessary adjustments needed to ensure that learners attain the intended targets of the teachers and the curriculum. A common adage that says, failing to plan is planning to fail, highlights the importance of planning. This is especially true to teachers who are charged to mold young minds of the future. Thus, it is important for teachers to have a clear idea of how to plan for effective instruction. And in this lesson, you will be introduced to the basic components of effective instructional planning. Planning involves several factors to consider in order to make it effective. Algajine suggests three major components of instructional planning, namely 1. Deciding what to teach, and 2. Deciding how to teach, and 3. Communicating realistic expectations. Since the standards set the in the K-12 curriculum are stated standards and competencies, there is a need for the teachers to unpack these standards to less complex skills. Therefore, in order to decide what to teach, teachers undergo the following process. What to teach? The first one is assessing learner skill. Being a teacher, we have to consider that the tasks we provide our learners are within their abilities. As discussed in the previous chapter, the learners are at the center of our classroom decisions. This could be done using various tools such as their diagnostic test, achievement test, or an assessment of the learner's performance in previous activities. And yes, the teacher must consider this. The teacher need to ensure to gather data to assess the level of skills of the learners through using various tools such as the mentioned diagnostic test. This is provided before the instructions to evaluate the strength and the weaknesses, the knowledge and the skills of the students. And next is achievement test or standardized test that develops to measure skills and knowledge learned in a given grade level or an assessment of the learner's performance in previous activities. Number 2, analyzing instructional tests. Other than analyzing the learner's skills, the teachers also need to be sure of what they want the learners to do. Teachers analyze the tasks they want the learners to accomplish by breaking down complex tasks to simpler, manageable ones that are within the learner's skills and abilities. So this means the purpose of task analysis is process of learning about the students by observing them in action to understand in detail on how they perform their tasks and achieve their intended goals by breaking down the complex task with smaller. That means you break down each goal into several smaller by means that students can cope with it based on their levels of skills and abilities. And remember that teacher must adjust their teaching to match the student's level of understanding. Number 3, establishing logical sequence. Along with the analysis of the instructional task, the teacher then needs to sequence this task in a logical and appropriate manner based again on the learner's developmental abilities. So this could be done by prioritizing the lower level of ones to more complex on, and that means you should be used as steps by teaching of content and skills based also to the learner's development abilities. It includes all forms of delivery, for example, lecturing the lessons, and then let the students read or watch a video, then let them tell, explain, and demonstrate. So those are the steps that need to consider here. And then number four, considering contextual variables. In deciding what to teach, teachers may need to look into the contextual variables, which may include how long the lesson will take, the availability of materials needed, or the time of this day the lesson will take place, or in short, the class schedule. So, yes, before the teacher plan for a lesson, she must take into consideration of the instructional materials. Is a blackboard available? Do you need technology resources such as the laptop or projectors, or have you checked whether your devices are compatible with what are available in school? And also, the crucial time of the day of the lesson or the class schedule, if it is enough and relevant. The number five, analyzing instructional groupings. As language learning involves social linguistic interactions, creating opportunities for the learners to make meaningful interactions in the classroom needs consideration. Having an idea how learners work with each other helps in deciding how to give them instruction, keep them engaged, and have them perform better. And yes, the teacher need to be mindful with this since a language learning involves social linguistic. This type of grouping is important in all aspects of education due to the increase of social interaction that exists when using small groups, as well as the motivational factor where the students are assigned to group based on need for additional help. So time and practice in order to master the content and skills covered in the particular lesson. Number six, identifying gaps in actual and expected performance. As the teacher understands the level of performance of the learners, it is now imperative to understand how to bridge their current understanding with the new material being presented to them. So you should understand how to cross the previous learning of the student with the new learning that presented to them. It is to identify if it is still consistent, the focus and attention is still there. So the previous and the new knowledge of the students should be relevant. So this show how important the preparation for learning classes is important so that the teacher can lead productive and engaging lesson for students and maximize the effectiveness of the time and resources. And we are done to the what to teach, and now we will proceed to how to teach. The first one is setting instructional goals. So teachers need to present the goals of instruction to the learners in unambiguous terms. As mentioned before, the simple, lower level skills need to be presented in a logical manner that would be understandable at the level of the learners. So yes, the teacher need to consider through adjusting their teaching to the level of understanding to match the level of understanding of the target, which is the students. And also the students won't feel the confusion because if this instruction is less of clarity, then there's a possible that the whole learning process of student won't be achieved, as in the first place it has no beginning at all. So the teacher must consider that circumstances. Number two, selecting instructional methods and materials. Decisions that would be made for the method and materials would be guided, of course, by the topic selected, the activities or tasks for the learners, and the learners themselves. So, as a teacher, you must choose and use a crucial material that is benefits for individual because instructional materials provide the basis for what the learners will experience and learn. They hold the power to either engage the learners or demotivate the learners. Therefore, instructional materials must be carefully planned, selected, organized, and used. And additionally, sometimes we realize at last that our learners might have special needs. Number three, Pacing instruction appropriately. Pace is simply how slowly or how quickly the teacher goes through the material. Thus, the teacher should be able to set the appropriate pace when going through the material, basing this, of course, on the learner's level and the activities that learners are tasked to accomplish. So, the teacher should set an appropriate pace of instruction. It's crucial to consider the speed at which you move through a lesson and rate of delivery for different parts of the lesson because when pacing is too slow, then students often become bored and disengaged. And if it is too quick, then most students won't keep up with the lesson. So it's better to have a balance. And number four, monitoring performance and replanning instruction. In planning how to teach, it is also important for the teacher to know how to monitor learners' performance and they use this information to plan the next instruction. In addition with that, one great benefits of monitoring the student progress is that it allows the teacher to evaluate the effectiveness of their own teaching. So if the majority of the class is finding it difficult to understand or demonstrate specific object, then you may need to reevaluate the method delivery of the method through which the concept is being taught. To do this, it is especially important for the teachers to assess their own instructional strategies. And now we will proceed to the next part, which is communicating realistic expectations. The first one is clear objectives. Learners must be able to have a clear view of what are expected to them in the lesson. Providing them with clear objects sets the tone of the class, gearing their thinking and expectations in the lesson toward a clear goal. In order to keep the objective clear, they should be SMART. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound, and objectives. So it is very important to ensure that learning objectives is appropriate and holistically clear because this is the crucial part that necessary for the student to achieve at the end of the lessons, of course. Hence, to achieve a clear objective, SMART must be included, which is stands for yes, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So, as a whole, it is a method helps push you further, gives you a sense of direction, and help you organize and reach your goals. Number two, learning materials. Availability of necessary materials must be considered in planning instruction. This would help the teacher make adjustment to his or her instruction based on this, such as whether to use realia or to use models. So yeah, the teacher must be mindful of the availability of the materials as it can significantly increase learners' achievement by supporting learning. For example, an educational video may provide a learn with new insights and an appealing worksheet may provide the learner with new opportunities to practice a new skill gained in class. And now, number three, active background knowledge. Tapping into the learner's prior knowledge about the topic, lesson, or materials helps make a connection with the learners. It also makes the topic or material relatable to the learners, enabling the teacher to engage the learners more and instill the new concepts easier. So it is important to awaken the prior knowledge of the learners so they can relate to the um, introducing of new learning. So it would be easier for the student to cope up with the lesson and helps them understand the concept. When the teachers make connections between the lesson and the students' background knowledge, then they validate their culture and experiences and may facilitate greater interest in the lesson, which is true. Number four, direct instruction. This is the where the teacher presents the concepts or skills as indicated in the objectives. This is where various means are employed by the teacher to deliver the learning to the learners. So the teacher use explicit teaching techniques to teach a specific skill to their students. So this is a teacher directed where a teacher typically stands at the front of a room and presents information. For example, an English teacher want to teach the students about the metaphor, then she would give students the definition and provide numerous examples. Number five, learner practice. Learners must be given the opportunity to practice the concepts or the skills they learned in class. Practice should be designed to gradually let the learners become independent. So this has a three-step process including a guided practice where learners are given practice with the teacher leading them. So it involves the teacher working through problems with students and guiding them. Example is include our reading aloud, using graphic organizers, doing experiments, and working through math problems together. The teacher will serve as a facilitator or guide to the students. B. Collaborative practice, where learners are provided with practice with their classmates. This can be through small or large groups. At this stage, the teacher could be going around the room providing help to the learners who might be struggling. So the teacher has a role with this to create a collaborative environment where the students are actively involved to their own learning. So the role of the teacher here is to act as a facilitator or guide the students rather than an actual instructor. Next, independent practice, where the learners are provided with activities that they will perform on their own. The teacher can still roam around the room to identify who among the learners really grasp the concepts taught and who could use additional practice. So the teacher here encouraged students to apply skills previously demonstrated. So the students then perform the task independently. Oh, so showing what they have learned and demonstrating their competency, the teacher role is just to support the students as a facilitator. Number six, closure. After the lesson, the teacher then prepares to synthesize the concepts presented in the lesson. It can be in the form of an activity where the learners can participate. So in closure, a good lesson closure review what you have covered in the lesson and leaves a lasting impression on your students. It is a chance to emphasize key information, allow your students to ask questions that have plagued them throughout the process, and of course, the activity will do also. And finally, the last, demonstration of learning. This is in the form of an assessment that assesses the learner's understanding of the concepts presented in the lesson. This is also an opportunity to gather data about the learner's performance. The best example of an assessment here are the oral presentation, essays, poems, video documentaries, and etc. as long as it check the understanding and mastery of the students. So that is the demonstration of the learning. And that would be the end. And thank you for watching.